Welcome to another episode of Crosstalk. My name is Kevin Tachi, and I will be your host for the next 30 minutes. Now, as you have come to expect from this particular program, we use it as a vehicle to inform you, the residents in both Whitman and Hanson, about some of the things going on in the two communities. So whether it's upcoming events, it's issues. Maybe it's just to give you an idea of something that's new in the town, or maybe to introduce you to some of the folks who serve you in the Whitman and Hanson area. Today, we are privileged to speak with one of the town clerks in our two communities. Dawn Varley is here, town clerk in Whitman. Dawn.
Hey, thank you.
Welcome back. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Your office is so instrumental in a lot of things that go on in town. What's it like to be the town clerk?
I'm very proud to be the town clerk. That's one of the most important things. My aunt, Grace Ludwig, was the town clerk years back. I was a teen at the time, never thought I'd be the town clerk. She lived next to me. I'd see her going off to work. And then later, my neighbor became town clerk, Pam Martin. Again, you know, I ended up working for the federal government, and I went about my life and had children and married. And when the position came open for the clerical assistant, I applied for that, went into the office, and I became the computer person. I had a lot of knowledge in computers that I had learned from the federal government, writing software programs and things, which became a tool in our town clerk's office. At the time when I came in, everything was handwritten, nothing, or typed. Nothing was on the computer, very little, few Excel spreadsheets, things like that. So PM had sent me to Access School, and I now write approximately 6 programs that the town uses every day: the dog licensing program, business certificate programs, births, deaths, marriages, things like that, that I have written in the Access database, Access software that I maintain, write, and all at a cost of nothing for the town. So I take pride in doing that, and I'm proud of my job every day. I like making people happy, giving them what they want, answering questions. I say we're the heartbeat of the town. When people don't know who to call, they call us. We guide them in a polite way. Michael and Mary, who work in my office, couldn't do it without them. Anybody who comes, calls. We never leave people dissatisfied with our services, or I hope to think that we don't. We get letters, I get emails, a lot of times, thanking them for their services or me for my services. And I think that's one of the best things, being the open arms and the welcoming, not that that's all that we do, but that's the beginning, of town government, I think, so I take pride in that part of it, and then I take pride in my work thereafter.
Well, we're going to talk about a bunch of things that are going to be really instrumental in the coming months. We know that your office is going to be in for a busy few months, starting with, as of a few weeks ago, nomination papers for folks who want to be in, who want to run for town office, whether it's selectmen, whether they want to be on the planning board, you name it.
Yep.
Nomination papers are available.
They are. So they were available the last Monday in January, and they have until March 29th, Friday, at 5 p.m. to turn them in once they've collected the signatures required, which is 50. We asked them to get a few more because a lot of people sign the papers and they're not registered voters, or if you've moved within Whitman, there's a lot of different things, because we're also in the census process right now. So it makes things a little bit more difficult. If you've changed locations, you get inactivated, and therefore you can't sign papers. Or if somebody moves from one house to another and they sign the papers at their old house, and now that they've re-registered at their new house, that signature is not valid. So that's why we always ask people to get extras to make sure that they have the full 50. If they don't have the full 50, we reach out to them and tell them you need 4 more signatures or whatever by that time. So as soon as we get the papers in from the candidate, we process them right away to make sure that they have enough signatures. So,
well, goodness knows that the town has approximately, or somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10,000 registered voters, and they got to at least have 50 of those. It's probably safe to get 75 signatures, just so it'll be easier to make sure they reach the required 50.
Yeah, they get two nomination papers. It's 64 signatures total. Some people just bring back the 50, but we advise most people just to get the 64, and they're pretty safe with that. Because it's usually town people who sign. I hate to say that, but it's usually town. It's the same people. You see the same people signing, for whatever reason that is. That's how it usually works. Some people stand out in front of the post office or maybe at Stop and Shop. Those places are a little bit more difficult because you have to be a Whitman resident, and not all Whitman residents go to the Whitman post office or to Stop and Shop. So you may people try to stay close to home.
You've seen interesting things during your time as a town clerk. I think you've told me a couple of times about a story where someone had, it was the day of that they had had to have papers in. Individual took papers out and was able to get the necessary signatures and get them in. That's got to be insane.
Yeah, they basically came in approximately like 4:30 and took the papers out for a selectman's seat, went over and stood in front of the post office, got the 50 signatures required, returned them by 5 p.m., and it's 5 p.m. sharp, it's not 5:01, and they had 50 valid signatures that put them on the ballot. So, and it became a race. At the time, it was not a contested seat. It was a selectman's race, and at the time, it wasn't contested, and this made it a contested race.
Interesting, very interesting. This year, that's not necessarily the case. There are the two incumbents and there are other folks who have taken out paperwork. We're not going to quantify a number because we're still waiting until the end of March, right, for the folks to return that paperwork. Talk about the importance of being a registered voter and at least updating your information. As you mentioned, it's important if you move, you go somewhere, to make sure they inform your office.
So registering to vote, and the census process is going on right now. A lot of people believe that by returning their if you don't return your census, you become inactive, which doesn't prevent you from voting at an election, but it does prevent you from participating in town meeting. An inactive voter cannot participate in town meeting. So it's very important to return your census. We've done the second mailing. We mailed approximately 6,500 households. Our second mailing was 1,900. We're in the process of receiving those back, and then once we get to a point, we start calling people at home. It's really an intense process. Years ago, when Mr. Matthews was there, he'd go door to door, and the law allows us to go door to door. I do not feel that it's safe to go door to door, but the law does allow us. It's a Massachusetts law. We're the only state in the United States that does it. But it's a good way of counting people, but it does not register you to vote. It says it right on the form. This form does not register you to vote. However, people still write in their name, and they write in that they want to register to vote. So we then send them, it causes us to send them a voter registration. But it's still up to them to register to vote. If they change their address, if they want to change their party, if they want just to check to see if they're a registered voter, they can go to www.registertovote.ma.com. And that is a Secretary of Commonwealth's website. You can register there, you can check your party there, you can check your status there. Everything can be done there. So again, it's www.registertovote.ma.com. And that is a valid site for any candidate, for any voter or any person to, and all you need is a driver's license. It can be done on your iPhone or your smartphone or anything. So it's your responsibility. We can only do so much on our end, and we try everything that we can. We don't want to delete you off. We don't want to inactivate you. We try, like I said, we call you. We look up your phone numbers on switchboard.com. It takes a lot of work from my office. It's hours and hours. So the easiest thing to do is return your census when you get them.
Talk to me about, as far as you mentioned, being a registered voter in order to participate. In May, if you want to participate in the town meeting, if you want to participate in the town election, which I believe is the third Saturday of the month.
18th, yeah.
Yeah, how soon, I guess, let's say someone who wants to vote for town meeting, they move to the community, the end of April. Is there a deadline that they have to be prior to town meeting?
Right. So April 16th is the last day to register to vote to participate in the annual town meeting and the annual town election. And then April 26th is only for the special town meeting. And that kind of gets confusing because we do have a special town meeting within the annual town meeting. It's 20 days before an annual town the annual town meeting, they have to be registered to vote. And it's 10 days before a special town meeting. Those are why those dates are the way they are. So it's the 16th of April. They need to be registered to vote. Our office will be open until 8 p.m. Actually, if they forget, they can go on that registertodvotema.com by midnight on the 16th. There's no 8 p.m. deadline. If you work in Brockton and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't get to Whitman by 8 p.m., they can register in Brockton for Whitman, as long as it's by 8 p.m. So you don't have to live in the town. People can come from Hanson and register in Whitman, and then we forward it on to the town clerk in that town. So you don't have to. You can register to vote in any community, no matter where you're registering for.
Okay.
So it's so easy. I don't know how else, other than us going to door to make it easier for people to register to vote. I mean, there is a lot of talk about the same-day voter registration, and it's out there, it's in the legislation to do that, and I think it's dangerous myself, but it is there,
Something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about nomination papers, folks who want to be candidates for office. Where does campaign and finance fall into that conversation if someone is running for office?
Okay, so if you are spending any monies and receiving monies or liabilities or any types of monies coming in, you have to report that with my office. When you pull papers, you're given a packet, and in that packet, it's the sign policy, how big the signs can be. I think it's 2 by 2 or 4 square feet. That's the sign bylaw of the town. They're given the campaign and finance. There's 3 reports. There's the 8 days before the election, 30 days after the election, and then there's the year-end report. Those 3 need to be filed. They also get a booklet on how to file their campaign and finance reports. And they're also given a calendar of events of different things that are required that are, it's different deadlines and dates that they need to meet and stuff like that. So campaign and finance is important. By law, you don't have to file a campaign and finance, post it online, not file it. Post it online unless they spend over $1,000. But in the last few years, I've made it a practice to just file everybody's campaign and finance reports, whether they've spent $0 or whether they've spent over the $1,000. The law says over $1,000, I have to. It's mandatory that I have to post it on the town website. But the last few years, I've posted every year, every campaign and finance report. So you'll see if you want to look, if you go to the town clerk under the government and you go to the left-hand side, you'll see campaign and finance, and you'll see them right there.
It's interesting that you mentioned in regards to the size of a campaign sign, because I believe locally there was an issue. I think we had someone running for office. I won't name particular office, but had big signs, and that it was a conversation that was had that there are communities that do have bylaws that they only be so big. Unlike, I know, neighboring city of Brockton, which they're going to be having city elections. They have signs that are, oh my goodness, as big as a car.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we had to have the candidates take those signs down. On the day of the election, I believe it's a little bit different. I talked to Mr. Curran about this. If they're being held, it's different. If they had like a banner sign, say, with people on either end, and the procedure is he sends them a letter to take the sign down, like he said, on the day of the election. By the time they get the letter, the election's over and things like that. But even on the day of the election, there's that 150-foot rule. So I'm kind of glad you brought up the signs. And it's marked with white lines, and you cannot have any sign, any bumper sticker, can't be on your cars or anything within 150 feet of the town hall. Yeah.
Really? So if I had a bumper sticker of a political candidate that was running for office, I couldn't park in the town parking. I couldn't in the parking lot.
Correct. And if you did,
know that.
Mr. Harry Bates had a car towed once because they refused to move their car. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and at the time,
but it has to be a candidate that's running. It can't be, an older candidate or an older sticker. But it has to be an active campaign that's going on. It's considered campaigning within that 150 foot. Now, to get from one side to the other, people are like, well, how am I going to get from Dunkin' Donuts to Venus or something like that? They can walk as long as they hold the sign down. There is laws in the federal government about coming into the building. Now, people can come in and vote, but they can't have hats and stickers and shirts. Federal government kind of overruled that, but the state government still says that you can't do it. If we see somebody come in, we have to ask them, and it does happen. We ask them to turn their shirts inside out, or they have to take the sticker
I've heard
off.
that.
Yeah, or leave. You can't go in. You can't, and it's just the way it is. They can have handouts. Those are the only things that they can carry, cheat sheets into the booth. Actually, the Secretary of State's office for the state elections kind of encouraged people to use like a cheat sheet of how they wanted to answer the questions or the candidates and stuff like that. But and then my wardens and my clerks are to go through the booths and clear out that debris, because a lot of people leave that behind and we just throw it away. So.
You mentioned Harry Bates, retired from the Whitman Police Department.
Yeah.
So was he serving as the constable at that time?
Yeah, he did it for years. I don't know how, 30-something years, until he retired.
Oh. Yeah. All right, so folks, it's important to remember to get out and vote. And I believe you said April 16th is the deadline for town to register to vote.
Register to vote, yeah.
To make sure folks know that. What is ranked choice voting? What is that?
So ranked choice voting happened in Maine for the first time. I believe it was for the presidential. So basically, it's not something that I'm crazy about. I understand why they want to do it. So basically, if you have 4 candidates, you pick who you want first, who you want second, who you want third, and who you want fourth. So if the candidate that you picked for to come in first doesn't get more than 50% of the vote, then they take whoever you voted for second. And if that person doesn't get 50% of the vote, then they take until a candidate gets 50% of the vote. I think it would cause a lot of confusion, but some states like it, and it's potential for it coming this way.
Something
it's
to
out
keep an
there.
eye on.
It's out there. They're talking about it. So
I know it's probably a little early to talk about this, but we know that when it comes to town meeting, there's a warrant that has its articles on it, whether it's just the annual or the special town meeting, which is sometimes inside, which is part of inside of the annual town meeting. Of course, they'll recess from the annual, go into the special, and deal with those articles. What is it like to have to post those warrants so folks are aware of the town meeting?
So the laws are 7 days for the annual town meeting and 14 days for the special. The warrant is being worked on right now. The selectmen ask different departments if they have articles. They work together with the finance committee. They work very hard trying to get different articles, different needs of the town together. Not just Article 2, but other things that the town needs.
Appropriate and raise.
Pay old bills, or to buy new cruises, or a copy machine, just various different things. Some things that are not monetarily, money related. They need union contracts, may need to be signed, different things, just town business. This is where the town has a choice. When I say, your local government, you have the say in everything, and here it all is. It's laid out for you in your warrants. And they're working on them now. They go over it with council and they make sure the language is correct, where the money's coming from, where it's going to. They number the articles. Usually they have FinCom's recommendations. Hopefully they'll have them by the time of posting. And then they get posted, 2 in each precinct, a total of 8, because we have 4 precincts. And so the board will vote to sign the warrant. The warrant is created, and then they sign the warrant, and then I have to get the constable, and the constable posts it. And I've posted it once myself, and it's 2 in each precinct. We have locations. Goodness, and I forgot to bring the locations, but I know
they can always call the town clerk's office, right?
Yeah, and we try to put it online. I try to put it online so people, and I know that Mr. Lynham plans on getting it out a little bit early this year, hopefully, so folks can have an idea of what's going on with the town. And the special town meeting, what that is any unpaid bills from last year. Right. So, and that's usually, like you said, within the annual. And then Article 2. Article 2 is usually not posted. It's usually presented the night of town meeting. I'm not sure what the Board of Selectmen intend to do with that this year. There's a lot of talk about a lot of different things. But it still has to be posted. The warrant has to be posted. The annual, like I said, 7 days before the town meeting, and the special is 14 days before.
Town is doing quite well when it comes to electronic voting and having the handheld devices. Anything that you want to kind of you want to share with folks in regards to going to town meeting and participating and being able to get their devices? Maybe any questions that have been asked of you since this has been implemented?
I find it, for me personally, a lot of work. I have to make the slideshow presentation. It's hours and hours of work, and I have to figure out which way the town could possibly go to make sure that we're not waiting 6 hours for me to make a slideshow presentation. So it is a lot of work. The IT director actually just reached out to see if they could have somebody from the company come and do the slideshow presentation, and it was $1,995, plus we have to pay their flying expenses and hotel expenses. So it doesn't seem like a wise cost. So I'll probably be doing it again. The only resistance I have with that is my main function is to record the town meeting, and I get concerned if I'm worried about running a slideshow presentation properly and not getting the right votes. I do have my assistant; she does take the votes as well, so that if I can, and you've always helped us with looking back at video and things like that. So I'm confident that won't be an issue. But it's always, when you're up there in the spotlight and everything's on you, you always, I hope I numbered them correctly or things like that. So I do the slideshow presentation. Josh helps me set it all up.
Josh McNeil.
Yep.
IT director.
Yep. He's wonderful to work with, and he helps, get everything. He actually signs the contract and orders the devices. We're in the process of doing that right now. We're just trying to figure out how many we should order. The moderator, it's the call of the moderator. He runs town meeting.
Mike Seeley.
Mike Seeley. Yep. He runs town meetings, so we're at his mercy. He's pretty much, go with it. You guys have been doing it. So now we're toggling with numbers on how many to order. We want to make sure we have enough devices, so that if you're short devices and you really probably shouldn't use them. Other towns have gone to those who don't have devices would do a secret ballot. I don't know how that would go over if you didn't have enough devices for everybody. Sure. So you could potentially rent 500 devices and then not be able to use them. So, it's trying to figure out numbers here. So how many to order.
How often do you have other communities reaching out to you or reaching out to your office to kind of get to gauge what it's been like using the handheld devices?
Yeah, I've actually had a lot. I've had a lot of people. The company that I use is Turning Technologies, and they've been very well to work with. I'm not discrediting them at all. The devices are easy once you get them. I think the first town meeting, people were afraid that, like, my device wasn't working. People were skeptical about did they work, and so I went back and I looked because I can see how the devices voted, and people were pushing like number 1 10 times, and I could see. Didn't know whose device it was, because we don't keep track of that.
Right.
So the next time I used them, I took a screenshot of my device to make sure. I wanted to make sure myself, is it reading what I'm pushing? And it did, and now we have as soon as you walk in, there's a slideshow, and when we hand them out, the light will turn green when you push a number to make sure that it was working. The first time we rented them, there was 300 devices given to me, and because people were unsure if their devices worked, they said that they didn't. I went through every single device to see if there were any that were malfunctioning, and I did find 2 out of 300, and they were in the corner of the box that had been damaged, and maybe that's something I should check before. But what we do is when we hand them out, we push the button, and the first screen when you walk in says, push button 1. If your device does not turn green, please return it and get a new device. So we have a lot of places, policies in place to try to prevent that, and hopefully, I think the voters are more comfortable now. I think, what is it, a 3rd, 4th time using them?
Yeah.
Or something like that. So
very successful so far.
Yeah, I like them.
Probably the final thing we want to touch upon, same-day voter registration.
Yeah, so they do have legislation in for that. They've been doing it a lot, every year. People want it. Some people want it. I don't want it. I think it's dangerous. I think same-day voter registration, I'm not sure what they have. Other states do it. Massachusetts, when you hear a lot of this Russia tapping in or this or that, voter fraud and stuff. It's not Massachusetts that you're hearing about. Our voting, our elections commission, they're very strict, and that's why we have paper ballots. We have a way of going back. We have processes to prevent voter fraud. I always tell people, my election workers, they're the same election workers in the same precincts, and they know who the people are before they even come up to check off their names. Whether you're Boston or whether you're Whitman, each precinct is only allowed to have 4,000 people. So in Boston, precinct 1, it could be Ward 10, precinct 10 or whatever, they still only have the same 4,000 people, and those election workers know those same 4,000 people. So, and they love to tell, election workers, if it's not the right person, they're going to stand up, and they're proud of what they do. They're proud, and my election workers are proud to work for me. I'm proud to have them work for me. So they've been trained in what to do if they believe that there's a fraudulent voter. So I think same-day voter registration just opens up a little door for that.
Okay. We got a couple of moments left here before we wrap things up, and we thank you very much for coming in and informing our viewers here. Talk to me about what it is like to assemble a team and get them ready for Election Day, for them when folks come on that Saturday starting at 9 a.m. and when the polls close at 5 and they're busy checking names and taking people's ballots and inserting them into the machine. What's that like to have key people who are overseeing the process?
I always say it's like planning a wedding. You got to get, everybody, and there's people that can't come. The May one's a tough one because it's school graduations, college graduations. So a lot of my regulars aren't able to come. There's a warden and a clerk, and all these positions are state mandated. And then you have 2 check-in and 2 check-out. I can even actually also have a demonstrator if I so chose. They used to have a demonstrator. I think it was Lloyd Patrick Quinn who was the demonstrator years ago. But anyways, I don't have a demonstrator. But so I'm required to have 2 check-in, 2 check-out, a warden, and a clerk. So so there's 6 people per precinct. And it's like juggling. I send it out to all my regulars, and then they send it, they either can't or can. And I have to make sure that not 2 Republicans sit together or not 2 Democrats sit together. I have
make
to
it a fair process.
Absolutely. So it's a juggling process just to get to that day. I don't sleep the night before. Like anybody else, you worry. I'm worried about I'm not going to wake up in time or whatever. And my workers come in, and they take their oath. We go over instructions, and they sit down, and they're ready and waiting for the voters to come in. And then at the end of the night, I said, everybody goes home. Everybody's in the lobby waiting for the results, and then they go home and they celebrate. They have their parties or whatever, and that's when the work begins for my office and for my election workers. They have to tally all that. Even though the tapes are read, there's still provisional ballots. There's side pocket ballots. We have to go through all the we have to go through every ballot to look for written write-ins and things like that. So, and then we put them in packs of 50. And so the work really begins when the polls close for us. And we could be there for hours, so.
Well, that's all the time we have. We have plumb run out of time. I want to thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, very much. I appreciate it.
Again, if you have any questions, it's easy to contact the Whitman Town Clerk's office. As throughout this program, you've seen it flashing up on the screen. And again, if there's a conversation that you want to have here on Whitman Hands Community Access, whether it's a department head, whether it's about an issue, a conversation, info@whca.tv, any ideas you might have for programming, or even for any of our programs' suggested guests. For Varley and the folks who are working behind the glass, have yourself a great day.